Hall & Wilcox acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast is recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations people joining us today.
Hi everyone, I'm Sumit Pereira. I'm the COO at Hall & Wilcox. Joining me today is my fabulous colleague Shell Iduwu in our general insurance practice. Our cultural inclusion committee is, for me, really about helping people feel welcome at Hall & Wilcox, feel welcome to be themselves, recognise that we all bring different perspectives and experiences and that we can benefit from that. And so when you think about your time as a professional, tell us some of the experiences that have really influenced your, interest in improving cultural awareness,
Yeah. For me, the importance is it's this weird struggle that I have within myself, and I've probably always had it. It's a little bit of imposter syndrome. Everyone has it to varying degrees, women in particular. And then I overlay that with the intersectionality of being a woman of Black African descent working in a space, in an area where there aren't a lot of people that look like me. I could probably count on one hand the amount of other Black legal professionals that I am aware of. I remember one of my first jobs after my undergrad degree, I applied for and was really, really, really chuffed to get a graduate position with what was then known as the Attorney General's Department. And I remember being so elated that I got the job. And then also I felt this feeling of dread because I also felt quite anxious that, I don't have the luxury of anonymity in Australia. I don't often see people that look like me in the street, let alone in the professional spaces that I work and walk in. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do? It's going to make me sound really basic, but what am I going to do with my hair? At that stage, I was wearing my hair in braids. And I remember thinking, well, I don't know. This is one of my first real office jobs. I don't want to stick out for the wrong reasons. I don't want all eyes swiveling to me because of how I'm wearing my hair. It's this dichotomy of feeling invisible, but also hyper visible at the same time. And so what I ended up settling on is I went out and I got my hair chemically straightened before I started my first job working for the Attorney General's Department, because I just thought, well, that's corporate. That's what corporate hair looks like. Certainly what corporate hair looks like in Australia. I will get my hair chemically straightened, and I wore it that way for years, because then it becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I started a job with my hair a certain way, then I'd interview for a different job and my hair would be that same way. So then even if I had these moments of, well, maybe I'll go back to wearing my hair in braids or go back to wearing my natural hair. Oh, but you interviewed with your hair like this. It's going to look like you're switching up on them. You're just keep everyone feeling comfortable. So I just kept straightening my hair. And increasingly I was feeling very, I guess, a growing sense of responsibility, particularly as I progressed in my legal career and became more senior. And I was having some experiences where I might be in a courtroom, and I don't know have you ever been in a courtroom where it's in the middle of a directions hearing or a trial or an inquest or whatever it is, and you can hear the door open and a teacher brings in a parade of students. They're normally high school students or above, and they're there to observe, and you can sort of see eyes agog with, with wonder. And I remember that happening maybe 6 years ago, and one of the students was a young girl of presumably of African descent. And I thought, oh gosh, this is so cool that, I'm here and I'm doing a directions hearing. Then I also felt this sort of sense of, oh, I wouldn't want the next generation to be thinking, oh, I saw a black lawyer and she had her hair straight because, you know, she's professional. So it's what you need to do.
What it
I didn't want to
takes, yeah.
perpetuate. I didn't want to keep perpetuating that cycle. And then COVID happened, and it was a good time to have that awkward grow out stage of, you know, half chemically straightened, half natural Afro textured hair. And yeah, then and that's just the way I've kept it probably since 2020. And Hall and Wilcox is the first professional work environment where I felt comfortable being my authentic self with my naturally Afro textured hair, and not sort of felt, oh, you know, maybe I should do something different with it.
It's interesting, isn't it, this concept of fitting in, you know, for you and I, probably if our names were different, if someone were to pick up the phone, we'd probably sound like most people in Australia.
Yeah.
But having also, you know, how do you go with your name? I can talk from my experience.
My name, it causes so many stumbles. I think I joked that I've lost many a billable hour to just the explanation of my name, particularly over the phone, but in person too. There's a lot of Swen, Siun, Sun, Sean. I've had on more than one occasion. Oh, I'm surprised when you answered. I just assumed from your name it was going to be a man. I've had a lot of, but that it can't be Sheln. There's no H in there. How is it pronounced Sheln? Sumit, do you understand how weird it is to try and negotiate with someone over the phone about how I say my name is pronounced? Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the whole fitting in thing's interesting. You know, I had a conversation with a colleague here who's from a subcontinent background like me, but has been in Australia a lesser period of time. And he said something really insightful. He said, you know, it's easy for you. You sound like everybody else. You don't have an accent. You kind of understand the culture because you've grown up here. And that was, the first time it really dawned on me. And we were chatting yesterday, Sean, you know, about code switching.
Yep.
For me, that kids really hang it on me because they can tell who in my family I'm speaking to. So if I'm speaking to my mother, I speak fluent Sinhalese, and I like to practice speaking with mum in Sinhalese. It's kind of fun. If I'm speaking to my dad, I speak with a more sort of English accent, you know, that what I would say to my cousins or when I'm traveling in Sri Lanka. And if I'm speaking to my sister who was born here, I sound like this, you know, I sound like an Aussie, like anyone else.
Yep.
And it's interesting how we sort of.
Code
What about
switch,
you? Do you
depending.
switch?
I don't. Well, certainly not within my family, because the way I'm speaking to you now, that's the way I was born in Brisbane. I don't speak another language. I didn't spend any time abroad, so I didn't have any opportunity to have another accent during some formative years or whatever. So I speak to my parents in this same voice and my siblings in this same voice. I sometimes may attempt to adopt or mimic my parents' accent, or more of a West African accent, if I'm telling a particular story or recounting something that an extended member of the family abroad has said to me.
I think it is really important from, you know, a leader of a business like ours that people feel comfortable to be themselves and to celebrate that and to celebrate the cultures that we have. That's easy for me to say, but I mean, how do you think that plays out at Hall and Wilcox, Sean?
I think Hall and Wilcox does it really well. I absolutely understand that the legal fraternity is one of the more old-fashioned professions, and there will be intimidation and concern from peers and colleagues who perhaps don't sound like us or have a stronger accent. But realistically, Sumit, when you're in a professional area such as law or any number of professional streams, what you're paid for, what clients are after from you is your advice and the cogency of that advice and the accuracy of that advice. How you deliver it in terms of whether you can speak clearly or succinctly or with passion and deliver a compelling argument is important. But that's a completely separate thing to whether your accent is not Australian or whether there is an accent at all. As long as you're delivering your submissions in a way that can be understood and are sensible, that really should be the end of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the expertise that everyone is looking for. You might deliver that expertise in multiple different ways, and how you communicate that might be different. And I think part of what I'm hoping we get out of this conversation is that people feel comfortable to do that in whatever unique way they deliver, the advice, the information that's required of them.
I hope so as well.
What about opportunities? I feel like I've had lots of opportunities in my professional career in Australia. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. I've been lucky. I've also worked hard. But what about, when you think about your career, have there been any hurdles or impediments for you?
Like you, I feel very fortunate in my career. Part of that is my choices, I suppose. Worked hard. Part of it is by design. I come from a very academically focused family. I feel I kind of fell into law actually, because initially I studied, my undergrad degree was commerce and IT. I was really good with PowerPoint in years 10, 11,
That's
and
why
12.
we get along. That's why we get along. I could tell.
I naively thought that a little bit of skill with PowerPoint would somehow translate to me being some coding whiz. And I thought I was going to be Australia's answer to Bill Gates. And I got to first year uni at ANU in Canberra, where I grew up. And I remember sitting in my first few weeks of lectures, and there were people who were it felt like they were talking to each other in binary, just 0011, 111, 0, am I right? And I was thinking, what are they on about? They were coding for fun on weekends. They were talking about taking apart computers to upgrade the RAM. I was still struggling to understand the difference between RAM and ROM. So just for those playing at home, random access memory and ROM is read-only memory. That's the extent of my IT skills. Yeah, you're welcome. You can see why I thought I was going to be Bill Gates. Yes. And so I finished that degree, the IT commerce degree, because I didn't want to quit, even though I hated a lot of the IT. And I was working, that's actually how I got my first job in Attorney General's. I did the business stream there. And, with constant nudging from my parents about, okay, well, that's your starter degree. What about something else? What's your real profession going to be? Because to my parents, it was medicine, dentistry, law, engineering, really old school, architecture, that sort of thing, the 5 or so stellar lineups. So I ended up studying law and found that I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the practice of law more than I enjoyed studying law, but I'm just really fortunate that Sliding Doors happened to be working in a particular department that was doing a field of personal injury type law that I found really interesting, transitioned from that to working for a law firm that did a lot of advice for that department, changed firms a couple of times, and here we are. So I feel like I've had a lot of really great opportunities and quite a bit of forceful prodding from very strict migrant parents with traditional expectations. In terms of hurdles, there are endless microaggressions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say every week or so there's some form of microaggression. And by microaggression, it might be something as seemingly inconsequential as the discussion about your name and how do you say it? That's a bit difficult. Oh gosh, it's so tricky. I don't know how to say it. One of my older sister, who's very no nonsense, said to me, "You need to stop apologizing and making it sound like Sheln is that hard to pronounce. If people can say Schwarzenegger, they can say Sheln. It's not that complex." And I thought, she's right. So microaggressions about my name and
What about
acting like,
where do you come from?
oh gosh, God, I could write a book about where do you come from. It's very rarely where do you. It tends to be more, where are you really from? Because it's like when you spoke about the voice, particularly over the phone, because I sound the way I sound. I think that's one thing, and then I say my name, and it's almost I can hear a pause of, oh, I didn't expect that name with this voice. Oh, she must be a foreigner. Well, how long? How long have you been in Australia? Or where are you from? That happens quite a bit. I've had a number of conversations with old medical experts and even clients. Where are you from? Shen? Sorry. Oh, I'm Australian. No. Where are you really from? Oh, if you're asking about my background, both of my parents are from Nigeria. Ah, well, welcome to Australia. Gosh, you must be happy to be here. Nigeria's not doing so well. Well, I mean, I was born here. Oh, you're Australian. Did we not just do this? I told you I was Australian. You probed for more information. You're confused by the answer I've given you. And now we're going back to what I originally told you. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. And I just want to know whether you're a suitable expert for this matter. We're not friends. Why are we having this do-si-do like we are? It's a really, bizarre kind of situation.
So, if you were to advise a young Sean about, how to make the most of the opportunities presented to you, how to try and overcome either the perceived or actual challenges that people face from having come from a culturally diverse background or looking different or sounding different, what's your advice?
This is going to sound trite, but there's no other way to say it. Be yourself. There is no one you are. What's that Dr. Seuss expression? There is no one more you are than you.
Yeah.
Be yourself and bring your most authentic self to work, whatever that means. Because increasingly, workplaces, not just Hall and Wilcox, all workplaces are really recognizing the richness and a benefit that comes from variety, including diversity in the workplace, and the breadth of life experience and cultural insight that individuals bring and add to a matter, problem-solving skills, well-rounded legal strategies, it all contributes to providing robust advice to clients. And I often find that people trip up the most when they're trying to be something that they're not, because you kind of just end up losing yourself, and rather than just thinking instinctively, okay, this is how I'd approach it, you're sort of, well, how would I approach it if I was who I think I'm supposed to be? And then you get sort of stuck tied up in all of these knots. So be your authentic self. If you've got an accent, whatever your appearance is, and I'm talking about the full spectrum here of diversity, cultural, the whole lot of it. But be your authentic self, because that is valuable. That's where the gold is going to be. God, I'm full of adages today. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And sameness breeds sameness. So we want variety. We want to challenge the usual way of thinking, and that's the way we've always done it. Maybe let's try things a little bit differently. So tell me how you would approach this with everything that has come to you from your wealth of life experience.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that play out so many times where we've got a really mixed, diverse team together, and we generally have that in scenario planning or business continuity planning. We get lots of different people involved in those sorts of activities, and just the varied experiences that people bring to the table, both from career, both from having worked overseas in different environments, their upbringing and ways of thinking. It just makes for such a wonderful melting pot and such better, you know, plans and outcomes from my
Absolutely.
experience. Mm.
Absolutely. I mean, a legal team, and whether it's for advice for a client or business planning for the firm, I I think you want that diversity to really reflect. It needs to be a visual representation of Australia's multicultural society, right?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, how can you probably obtain a real reflection of community values and the evolving attitudes to certain things if you've got sort of a cookie cutter look and feel around the table?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If we don't reflect the communities, for us, the communities that we serve, but the communities that we recruit from,
Mm,
the diversity of recruits and potential recruits at universities, if we're not putting people forward and demonstrating that there are people from diverse backgrounds who are succeeding at our firm,
hmm.
why would they come here?
That's
You know,
right. That's right. Representation matters.
it
Gosh, another
matters.
saying from me, you
Yeah.
cannot be what you cannot see. It
Mm.
really it does mean something, that it's not just some throwaway line that sounds really cool at the end of an advert or whatever. It means something. And I think Holland Wilcox does that really well.
Something that has been a challenge for us is, on internal committees, and I'll give you a recruitment example, to really have a diverse panel or diverse representation from the firm at events has been a bit difficult. And when I sort of probed into that, despite best efforts by people, inviting participants from a diverse background from within the firm to assist and participate, we weren't able to get, that sort of representation at a particular event that I attended. And I was a bit frustrated by that, to be completely honest. And I think it's on all of us that do come from diverse backgrounds to make the effort
We
to,
have to
to
turn up.
participate. You've got to turn
Mm,
up
mm,
and
mm,
demonstrate that we have had the benefit of being in an organisation like ours, and that there is opportunity for people that look different, sound different, have a different background and experience to
mm,
succeed here.
mm,
And I think that matters. And so I would really appeal to people in our organisation and even people outside of our organisation. It matters, turning up and making sure that you're there in good numbers, that we do represent the communities and environments in which we operate is so important.
yeah, I agree.
What about, clients, Sean? When you think about the
Mm,
clients that you work with,
mm.
do you feel that the diversity is important to them? We're seeing what's happening, for example, in the US with the Trump administration really
Mm,
taking a particular stance around DEI initiatives.
yeah, yeah, DEI, the bad word in America, uh, bad abbreviation. I think we're getting there, Sumit. I think diversity, depending on the client, diversity means so many different things because, as we already spoke about, there's a full spectrum when we talk about diversity. It's not just cultural, it's religious, it's
Of
religion,
course.
it's orientation, whether you're able-bodied or differently bodied, that sort of thing. It's the full spectrum. And I think, and it's gender. And I think we're still perhaps in the era of gender tends to be the biggest focus, and then perhaps on a sort of staggered sliding scale, other aspects of diversity. So there's still work to be done. I think at the end of it, our clients want good work done well. They want value for money, probably somewhat hamstrung as well because the legal fraternity is still so relatively old school. I know that we all read the surveys and the statistics come out every year about there are more female solicitors entering the profession than men at a rollicking pace. But when you compare the number of female partners to male partners, or female barristers to male barristers, or female judges, you still see a discrepancy in the figures. So I think gender is still first in front of most people's minds, and then the other stuff is kind of on the back burner, slowly catching up.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's just the start of a conversation at our firm, and I'm really looking forward to working with you as co-chair of our Cultural Inclusion Committee. Thank you for joining our first podcast. Hopefully that was of interest and some value. Hopefully you got a laugh. Feel free to connect with me or with Sharon on LinkedIn. And please, if you like today's episode, please rate, review, or follow our podcast wherever you pick up your podcasts.
This podcast is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as such. You should always obtain legal advice about your specific circumstances.